So with Chicago sports, let's talk about the Blackhawks a little bit. I've been getting some comments and questions about when are you going to talk about the Chicago Blackhawks, and I've been waiting just a little bit because of some of the moves that were made around the trade deadline. Most notably, Seth Jones out, Spencer Knight, the goaltender, coming in. So I wanted to comment a little bit on what I've seen from this team, and I wanted to give Spencer Knight just a couple of games a little bit, a small sample size, so I can maybe talk a little bit as intelligently as I can about hockey. Let's start with the simple stuff. The Chicago Blackhawks are a terrible hockey team. They're plus minus. I believe they are minus 59, which I think is second worst in the NHL. They have the second worst record in the NHL. And all the optimism about, I don't think people were thinking the Chicago Blackhawks were going to make the playoffs, but I certainly think that they were hoping that they were going to improve upon one of the NHL worst records of last year and maybe pick up 15, 20 extra points. It ain't going to happen this year. It's been a frustrating season, I believe, for Connor Bedard. He's still putting up numbers. He's just underneath a point per game. But I think a lot of Hawks fans were hoping, even at 19 years old, that Connor Bedard would take a step forward. And I've been adamant when I have talked about the Blackhawks here on Sports Talk Chicago, is that I understand when you want to rebuild, you want to get as many draft picks as you can, as many bites at that apple, and then you want to try and develop each player individually in a gradual way. So when they do graduate to the NHL, they're ready to play and contribute, and then you have this wonderful young core around you, and then you can go out and compete. The only criticism that I've had about that in general is I think that the Blackhawks have been a little too slow or a little too calm about this version of a rebuild when I think they have a possible generational player in Connor Bedard. And I just ask myself the question, how many years are you going to burn through playing the kids mixed up with some low-level veterans until you actually really get serious about winning and start pairing Connor Bedard with real deal all-star wingers and hockey players and people that can go out and win some games. So, unfortunately, because of the growing pains of so many young players on the team, and they have traded some of the veterans off of this squad, Taylor Hall, Seth Jones, like I just mentioned, the bumps in the road are potholes. And it's showing up most on the defense right now. However, I will say that there are some players that I definitely think are worth keeping around. Connor Bedard is the obvious one. Another one is Alex Vlasic, young player, over 20 assists right now on defense, 23 years old, I believe. Definitely a top 4 rotation guy on a defense that I think can play in the playoffs. And then there's Artyom Lezhinov, who they just called up recently, very high draft pick. And immediately he has shown from the defensive side that he can mix it up and that he can handle a lot of different things out there. And in some situations, there's one stretch, there's a replay up on Twitter if you look it up, where he makes 3 consecutive stops in a row after his teammates turn the ball over in their own zone. A rush comes, he knocks it down, almost clears it out. Blackhawks couldn't clear it out. Here they come again. Lezhinov knocks it down, scoops it up, gets it out of there. So I think those are young players that you can start to feel good about and maybe possibly build around. Lucas Reichel's another guy. Frank Nazar's another guy. They have some dudes on this team who could be a part of some winning ways in the near future. Teuvo Teravainen has had a very strong season coming in as a free agent. The second time around has worked out for him so far in a Chicago Blackhawks uniform. And then there's the kid, Spencer Knight, who, as I'm taping this, last night just gave up 6 goals. Now, to be very fair, I don't want to speculate too hard, but there seems to be a little internal something going on in that game. They had a great first period. They came out there completely in shambles, did not look like the same team, and got blown up by the Kraken. But for the first time in a long time, the Chicago Blackhawks have a goaltender that they could possibly build around. And that is a huge piece. No offense to Peter Mrazek, but I always thought he had some great years several years ago, but now is more of a middle-of-the-road goaltender. And they need, just as much as they need guys to score goals and the defensemen of the future and all that stuff, they need a goalie that can also grow around Connor Bedard. Spencer Knight could be that guy. They are going to give him a ton of run to find out. What I've seen so far, I've liked. But again, with young players, it turns into consistency, experience, and maybe they have a goaltender of the future, and that, at least that part, they can hit the ground running on next year. But for the rest of the season, there's going to be more bumps. You can try and find some glimmers of hope and highlights. If Connor Bedard plays a little better, that'd be great. He's sitting on 18 goals right now with, I believe, by the time of this taping, in the 15 to 17 game range left in the season. Can he get to 23, 24 goals? That'd be ending the season on a high note. The Blackhawks are very bad. I'm very curious to see if they remain calm in the offseason or whether they start to slowly put the foot on the gas a little bit and try and accelerate this, because the more good players you put around Connor Bedard, the faster he can develop, hopefully turn into a superstar, and then you start at least rocking and rolling and start at least sniffing and talking about the playoffs. You do not want it to be year 5 and Connor Bedard is about to play his first playoff game. We can't do that. You can't mess this up. You want to do it right, but at the same time, you got to know when to accelerate a little bit. And I think the Blackhawks, with enough young players coming up, they can start maybe pushing some buttons in some different areas. And I know Seth Jones, some of the money got off the books. Hopefully they figure out a way to maybe take a big swing in the offseason.